Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make a portrait with alcohol markers. I'm going to be using the brand new Honolulu Plus markers from our sponsor Ohuhu. But before we jump into the tutorial, I want to compare the new Honolulu Plus markers with both the old Honolulu markers and the markers I think these nibs are most closest to, the Copic sketch markers. So we're going to start off with the old Honolulu markers. I filled in a box with the chisel nib, and now I'm going to be flicking in with the darker color of ink here. So I chose a light and dark teal color because that was in my set of the new Honolulu markers, and they were kind of the closest ones I thought that would do a good blending test. And so I just chose colors that were very similar from the old Honolulu set and the Copic sketch markers. Now, as far as color variety, the old Honolulu markers have a range of 320 colors. You can see they blend together pretty well, even though there is a pretty big jump in colors here. The new Honolulu Plus will have a variety of 462 colors. There are sets available in 24 and 36 count markers, but you'll be pretty much building a collection with open stock with this brand. And I'm going to do the same exact steps for blending here, filling in with a chisel nib. The chisel nib is identical to the old Honolulu chisel nib, and then flicking in with a new super brush nib here. This plus nib on the markers really has a nice bendy flexibility similar to the Copic sketch markers, and I find it's really easy to control your inks. Even though we have a big jump in color here, we're still able to get a pretty good blend by working back and forth with the brush nibs in this marker set. And the Copic sketch marker has a color range of 358 colors, so it's kind of in between the new and old Honolulu ranges color-wise. And you can see I was able to get a better blend with the new Honolulu Plus marker nibs versus the old stiffer Honolulu nibs. And there you can have a look at those nibs. And then finally, we are going to compare them with the creme de la creme, the probably the most highly regarded markers out there, the Copic sketch markers. And again, starting off with the chisel nib to fill in the square with the main, or the rectangle with the main color, then flicking in with the darker tone on the brush, and then flicking in with the first lighter tone again. Now the Copic sketch markers, those colors actually seem to be a little closer together. I had to go with whatever I could find that was closest to my to the colors in the new Honolulu Plus range, and the Copics did a great job at blending, no surprise there. Now the nibs felt very similar between the Copic sketch brush nib and the new Honolulu Plus. They both feature those foam rubber nibs, and that's really what gives you that bounce and that flexibility that marker lovers absolutely love. Now I'm going to uncap these and kind of show them to you side by side just so you can kind of get an idea of the brush size difference. They're really very similar in size, as you can see. The Copic might be maybe a touch smaller, but not really. I do find the original Ohuhu Honolulu nib to be a little bit thicker, and there we're going to just bend and do some undulating lines so you can test the kind of nimbleness and flexibility of the brush, and then some just lines with the chisel nib. The chisel nibs on both of the Honolulus are identical, and they perform exactly the same. And there you can see I got a much more expressive line from the brush nib on the new Honolulu Plus markers. And now we're going to compare it with Copic. Copic is very similar to the new Honolulu Plus, giving us a nice flexible range and expressive quality. So there you can see all three side by side. And I think that they are really, I think they're all really great markers, but I can definitely see the benefits of the new neoprene rubbery nib on the new Honolulu Plus markers. And there you can see them side by side, very similar. The chisel nib on the Honolulu markers are wider, as you can see, but the brush nibs between the Copic sketch and the new Honolulu Plus are very much comparable. Let's take a closer look at the flexibility of the nib. On the old marker, here I'm pressing it, and you're going to see that we mostly just get a bend at the tip of the nib. And then with the new Honolulu Plus and the rubbery neoprene nib, you can see that when we press it, I'm not giving a lot of force, but it's bending into the middle of the nib more and giving us more of a teardrop shape. And then comparing that with the Copic nib, it bends very similarly, bending into the middle of the nib. It has a little more bounce to it. You know, if I hold it to the side, you can kind of see how it goes there. We're going to look at it one more time just so you can kind of see this is the new Honolulu nib more at an angle. See how much it flexes, very similar to the Copic. And then one more time with the old Honolulu nib. And these I don't want to press them too much because I don't want to fray the nibs. And I do feel like the fiber nibs of the old Honolulu marker could tend to fray a little bit more. But there they are side by side. So you can kind of see how they are the same and how they differ. The biggest difference is that the Copic sketch marker costs about 4 times the price of the new Honolulu Plus markers. So with that, let's get on to the tutorial and make some art with these. Now let's make some art. These markers also come in this really pretty white bag, so it's a little different than the old style that comes in the black bag. So just a little something different that you may be interested in. I'm starting off with a light pencil sketch, a colored pencil sketch on my paper, and I am going in with my darkest skin tone, and this would be kind of that shadow brown color, and putting it in wherever I see really dark areas. There's really wonderful shading on this portrait. I found this photo on Unsplash, and I loved how intense the shadows were around the eyes and under the chin and on the mouth. So I thought this would give us a great chance to play with some values and see what these markers can do. There's quite a few portrait tones in the markers. I should say more pale portrait tones in this set. So I thought it would be nice to do somebody with light skin. And I thought it would kind of give the markers a good showcasing. But it was kind of a tricky color palette to figure out what I was going to draw with them. And I fully intend to bring in some other media so that I can bridge the gaps where I have kind of gaps in the color, where I don't have as many as I typically would use if I was doing alcohol markers. Now, I've used these markers with the original Honolulus. I actually use them with my 120 set of Honolulu bees, and they pair together so nicely, they blend together with no problem. So you don't have to worry if you pick up a few of these new plus markers that they're not going to work with anything else. They're going to work with all your alcohol markers. That's a great thing about alcohol markers. You can just put them together and get a greater variety. Because sometimes I want a bullet nib. Sometimes I want a chisel nib. Sometimes I want a brush nib. So I'll just mix my markers together. The Oahus have a really nice fine bullet nib that I love to use. They all have chisels available, and I'll just use them together because that gives me the best of all worlds. I'm using the variety of light pinks and oranges and peaches to build my skin tone together. Now, one thing I didn't think of when I was sketching, and I wish I did, was I should have used that really pale lavender that's in the set to do some of the shadows, because the lavender would cancel out the yellow in those peachy colors, and I would have been able to do some really nice desaturated shadows, but I didn't think of it at the time. And sometimes those ideas don't come until after I'm done an artwork. Have you ever found that? Like, you finish up a painting and you're so proud of it, and you set it on like your easel and you leave the studio, and then you come back and look at it and you're like, oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that, or that's totally crooked. Well, you're not alone. We all have those moments. But honestly, I wanted to play with these markers, and that's what I did. And a lot of times when you're playing, you're discovering and you're learning new things. And if you never have those, I should have done this moments, then you're not stretching yourself. You're not pushing yourself. You should struggle a little bit with your art, because if you don't, you'll get burned out. If you're always doing things that feel safe, that feel winnable, then you're going to miss out on a lot of learning. I don't think there's any failure in art. You either succeed in the project that you're doing, or you learn something new. And honestly, you're probably better off learning something new than succeeding every time. You definitely are. What do I mean sometimes? You totally are. All the time. You got to get some wins, but some of the best learning opportunities come from digging yourself into a hole and then figuring out how to climb out of it. And I do that all the time. And it doesn't matter how, I think the more you do it, the more different size, depth holes you find yourself in, quite frankly. And that actually keeps art really fun for me anyway. I am using this gray to do some shadows, and that's working out pretty well too. But I am going to rely on some other media to kind of bridge the gaps between the colors that I don't have in this set. And now I could mix this with my 320 set of Ohuhu markers, but I didn't want to rely on those markers. I wanted to really show what these markers were doing, and also not confuse anybody that's wondering about these markers. That way they can see when they're in action, you're definitely seeing the new Honolulu Plus. I'm using the Ohuhu colored pencils here. They work really well with these markers, and a neat thing about colored pencils is that alcohol marker dissolves the colored pencil material. Now, this is kind of a blessing and a curse. I wouldn't recommend going over a really thick application of colored pencil with your markers because you could clog the nib. If you do that, just scribble your marker off on some scrap paper before it really gets gunked in there. But if you're just doing a really light shading like I was with these pencils, going over it with a maybe slightly darker, slightly lighter, kind of near value color is going to help it blend in and look really nice. So that's another way to get a little more bang from your buck, because colored pencils generally they're longer wearing than markers. I don't know if they're necessarily cheaper, just depends on the brand, but they do last a long time. And when you can combine them, you really multiply the usefulness of your materials. Now here I'm using the lavender. It finally dawned on me, use some lavender. I think maybe I was concerned that with a marker I'd get way too much. So I'm using browns and lavenders to do my shading. I wanted to keep her complexion really soft and young. I didn't want to put too much texture and make her look older than she is, because the portrait, I'd say she's probably around 20 or something. I wanted to get that youthful vibe with the bandana. I just think it's really cute. I'm using a fine liner here, and these are the Ohuhu liquid fine liners. I really like these because they're full of liquid ink instead of like a pad in the middle that's holding the ink. So you're getting all product in there. And because of that, they should last you quite a bit longer. I used this same set to do my Line and Wash Botanicals class. I've used it for a bunch of Inktober's. I've used it for a bunch of World Watercolor Months. I've used it for, they're the ones on my desk because I know that they're less likely to run out, and I use them daily, and none of them have run out yet. So that is a recommendation of mine. I don't think they're that much more expensive than your typical fine liner either. So it's nice, and it's got a really nice brush marker in there, which you're going to see in a moment. It's got a really fine brush nib, and it's very flexible, and you can get thick to thin lines. There you can see it right there. And it's fun to do in the hair because it's so expressive. Now, I know that some Ohuhu products are available at Michael's, and if you have a Michael's store near you, you can get the fine liners there. I think they are a little bit more expensive, though. I think they're a few bucks more, maybe not. The glitter pens are more at Michael's than they are online, but you know, it's handy if you can just run in and grab what you need. So just wanted to mention that. And here is that tip I was telling you about going over with a similar value tone to blend. Now I'm blending in the colored pencil that I put with that marker. And because I don't have a super thick application, it's not going to hurt the marker. My favorite thing to sketch a drawing with that I'm going to color with marker is a colored pencil. I generally will use an erasable colored pencil just because, you know, you can erase any mistakes, but you can use regular colored pencils too. In fact, regular colored pencils, if you don't put them down really, really heavily, they usually will erase all right. I don't draw too darkly when I'm just sketching under a marker illustration anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I'll grab whatever's handy. But I do keep my erasable colored pencils right in my desk caddy so I can get to them easily. And this is one of the Ohuhu white gel pens. They come in a pack with gold and silver gel pens. I think you get more whites. I think you get like 3 golds, 3 silvers, and like 6 whites maybe. But I would recommend you only open 1 white at a time, or maybe you have one in your travel bag and one at home. I wouldn't open them all up at once, because once you start opening a gel pen, and it doesn't matter the brand, the clock is ticking. So you want to use it up. That's why I say open one, use it up, and then open the next one. But these work pretty well, honestly. And yeah, I just keep adding until I can get the depth that I want. I'm still not super crazy about the shadow that I have on the neck right now, but I think I can mellow it out as we go along. I like really soft highlights and shadows. I think that she kind of is looking a little bit like a cartoon character, but honestly, I feel like my style is a little bit cartoony or illustrative. I don't know. You know, we all paint like ourselves, right? And people talk about, how do I develop a style? And I say, don't worry about it, because it will happen. Your style will find you. And mine just happens to be kind of glossy and cartoony. I don't know what it is, but it's my style, and it's fun, and I like it. And you know, and I enjoy kind of puttering around with these little details. I love that little cleft in her chin. I think that's super cute. And yeah, it was just really fun to work on this. I had an audiobook going, and the protagonist in the audiobook was a 16-year-old girl, so it was just kind of fun to be listening to that audiobook and to be drawing this portrait. When choosing subjects or reference photos for portraiture, consider shadows and try to find something that's got some dramatic shadows, maybe some interesting wrinkles and lines. Try to find unique faces. I find, especially finding something with good lighting is much better than picking, say, a fashion magazine photo or a photo of an airbrushed celebrity. You want something with a little bit of contrast. And there's a term called chiaroscuro, which is this light to dark contrast you see in a lot of Renaissance paintings. Caravaggio is really known for this. It's a beautiful technique, and I highly recommend you look it up and see what I mean about finding those really extreme shadows. It's so beautiful. Of course, I'm not depicting that here in this portrait, but I did want to mention it to you because it's just something to behold and something to strive for, I think, as an artist. Now, what I'm using here is a acrylic marker. It's the Ohuhu acrylic brush markers, and they are just wonderful for adding those opaque details at the end of a painting, such as the pattern on the bandana, highlights on the face, or anything you want to adjust there at the end of the picture. And I really love how this came out. I'm really happy with it. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. I want to thank Ohuhu for sponsoring this video today. All the links to the products I used will be found in the video description. Thank you for watching. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. And until next time, happy crafting.